Good morning, everyone. Welcome into the Jamie, please help me through the madness of each and every week video here in round 9. There's a lot to think about. Obviously, because you can do the 3 trades, the last few weeks have been pretty crazy at that point, and there's lots to think about. And KO weeks is the first one on people's minds. Obviously, very highly owned, surprisingly, but not a lot in sort of the top 1,000, top 5,000 there. 23% of the top 5,000 after last week. 8 out of the top 100 have him right now, and I think he's more one of those guys that people started with thinking he'd play round 1 and then haven't touched it. That's why he's that highly owned, but he's going to start to be brought in by the masses, and there's every reason why you should be looking to pick him up, and that is the kick meters of 423 is absolutely tremendous. Obviously, you're getting a heap of points there out of that one, which is great. You're looking at sort of another 14 points from that point, which is awesome. Exactly what you want to go along with tackles. And just at that alone, he had 4 missed tackles, but made 26, and you get to 42 with some running, which is what we expected him to get. So now that's the good side of it, right? If he can do that weekly, then he's got lots of money to make. He's dual position half and wing fullback. On the negative side, do you guys remember preseason? Ethan Strange and KO Weeks out there together. Ethan Strange was the dominant half and did all the kicking basically, and Weeks we thought it was gonna play out exactly that way. My theory on it was that because Strange has not been kicking in general play, and Weeks has been playing cup and doing a lot of kicking down back there, that is why I thought that they came in and just went, Weeks, you just control this one because Strange hasn't been that controlling half in first grade, so you do that, right? Well, they lost 40-0, so does that mean that obviously this week that it could change, or does Weeks stay the same? They have a bye the following week. In that bye time, do they give Strange the keys back and go, well, okay, well, you can run this show as well? So in my opinion, I think Weeks needs to be left this week, and then we look at him in round 11. That's my thought. I think because if you buy him this week, you've got to buy next week. He's out, I mean, buy and buy. 2 different spellings, obviously. And then round 14, he's out as well. So there's that portion of it that is a little bit annoying. But if he's going to get these base stats, then I think you need to select him in round 11. That makes a lot of sense. But right now, I think you can wait one more week and see what happens with him, because there's every chance. We know what Ricky can do. He's given his youngster a rest. He's got all the theories, and I reckon that New South Wales Cup 1 is a pretty decent theory. We'll see how it plays out. There's every chance that could change. And with Chevy out this week, who kicks goals as well? Is it Weeks? Is it Strange? Strange kicked goals in the trial. Stewart did the couple of weeks ago. So there you go. That's my thoughts on KO. I think that he's a really solid purchase that's going to make money with a lower break even, but I think you can wait until round 11. Chevy Stewart, speaking of the man, he's being rested. So he's not dropped. He's rested. I think he'll be back in round 11 for sure. So if you're happy to hold him at 264 across the next 2 weeks, like what else are you going to do with him? To be honest with you there, you can use him as a looper the next few weeks. If you need a wing fullback, there's other options this week, which we'll go through. So not much else to say on Chevy. He got a good score last week and lower break even now. So you got to hold on. He's got money to be made and he'll help you out in round 13. I think he'll get that spot back for sure. Speaking of Ethan Strange, at 446, so it's a little bit more expensive. He's priced at 32. So what that means, guys, is if he can hit a 32 average over the next few weeks, then he's not really going to lose any money. He's got a slightly higher break even than that right now after the low score, but long term he should be fine. Like, how many games have we seen him where he hasn't done too much on the attacking side and still got a decent score? Like, he picked up a line break in round 5 and got a 46. He picked up just a line break assist in round 4 and got a 37. So, they're the options that you can. So they're the types of scores you can get out of him. He has these random games like round 3 where he got a 12 and round 8 where he got a 14. Like, I don't understand why. I understand that Fogarty's out and that hurts his scoring a little bit, but and the team. But 37, 46, 50, and 35 the weeks before, he can just be used as a looper next week. You're not going to lose money on him next week. He covers centre and half, which is massive. And he plays around 13 and 16 and 17, right? So I think at 446, there's other guys that are going to lose cash quicker than what he might, and he covers a couple of tough positions and tough weeks. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Strange. The kicking could turn around very quickly. Yes, he only kicked for 60 last week. The week before that, he kicked for 162 when when Fogarty went down. So I do think he's going to be fine longer term. So I'm definitely holding this week. He's owned by the majority, and yes, if you sell, you might get the jump on people, but I don't think that he's expensive enough to be too much of a worry. Like even if he hits 20s over the next few weeks, 25, 25, 25, he'll be down at like 390, 400k, and it's not the worst in the world at all. Like he'll be down priced at now 28, 29. That's fine. That is fine for Eastern Strange. Schiller, he did a great job in the end, guys. So I recommended you not to buy him after that sort of 3 weeks, and he ended up going 39, 38, 45. So yeah, he's done really, really well this year. Very, very impressed with his consistency, because that is not something you've seen for the entirety of his career so far. So big run meters, getting tackle breaks, getting line breaks and the like. And even last week was still able to get a good score, obviously with some try savers in there. But it is now time for you to sell him. They rested Stewart this week. Olakou'atu is back, and Schiller even gets moved on for Nick Kotrick. So the defensive side is his worry. And surprisingly, he doesn't miss all that many tackles because he's not in the right position to even lay a hand on him. So that's that with Schiller. He's done a great job. He's the one at 446 over Strange that you can sell definitely there. All right, Simi Sasagi, just sticking with the Raiders, obviously here. There's a lot of movement on that side of things. But Simi at 323, it was a bit of a frustrating one. If you bought him last week, he's now out of the 17. And look, there's every chance that he could come back into it, but the break-even's not crazy low after he's 27. And unless Whitehead gets injured again, that'd be what you're waiting for with Simi. So you could hold for the week and decide next week, or he's one you can sell. And it's a bit of a frustrating one with his nice centre-half duel, just like Ethan Strange. So that's that on Simi. David Armstrong. Really excited about this guy this week. So let's just pop it up, the numbers there as well that we've got for trade-ins this week. And he's been brought in by the masses. 10.56% of people are bringing in David Armstrong this week. And then KO Weeks is 4%. Jaden Brailey at 4%. Plath at 3.27%. Go Plathy. Nico Hynes. Go Nico. And then Garrick at 3.14% into sort of Crichton, Fuller, and the like. So David Armstrong, a massive increase in ownership points. So with David, the negative break-even's lovely. He got 50 with a try, 2 line breaks. He still had 2 missed tackles and 3 errors, so still negative 10 on that front. So 60 points he accrued, and then lost a few, obviously, there to get down to 50. But he was awesome. And Barry Tui's come out and said that it's his spot to lose, basically, now. Like, if he continues to play well, was the question. Does he keep his spot? And it was a yes. If he continues to play well, he will keep it. And you're looking at the Wars into Tigers and Titans. So I do think over that period, it's a 3 games there. I don't think he's going to get monstered. I don't think he's going to. I think he'll be able to hold his own. He obviously has an attacking style game, a good running game with tackle breaks, and you could definitely see that again against the Warriors this week. They're a team that Brimson scored 2 tries against through the middle, did some good things there, and tackle breaks are going to be there. So Armstrong is someone I'm heavily considering as just a lock-in trade this week, and then working out my trades around it. I obviously have Gutho to deal with. So, Gutho to Armstrong seems fairly solid, a very easy one to do. And it's obviously a risk there that he could lose his spot to Fletcher Sharp, who is coming back from injury of a hamstring. Again, it could just be a timing thing. Like, you're just in the wrong place, wrong time, Fletcher. And Armstrong's in the correct place there, and he came in and played really well. Had a couple of kick defusals as well. So, did awesome work. 267 in the wing fullback, tough position. If you need some coverage for round 13 as well, if it gets that far, I hope it does, then he could be an awesome, awesome pick for your side. So Armstrong, look at him as a really good pick. Jaden Brailey at 490k. He's the next one on the list. And it's a really, really important decision this week, I think, for Brailey. And you look at his price point at 490k, price at 35. You need to look at him with when he gets good minutes. So if you look at over 70 minutes for him, over his career, it's a really, really nice viewing at 50 is the average. So that, if that was the case, it'd be a 15 points of value for a guy that plays round 13, covers Harry Grant, covers Robson if he makes Origin. He plays 14, which is lovely. He plays 17, he plays 19, and he plays 20. So we just pray. I pray for him, to be honest with you. Like, we can deal with it as fantasy coaches, but I just pray for him that he can stay on the park and keep fit, because he's such a good player, such an important guy for this team. Obviously, being their captain over the previous bunch of years. Dane Gagai has got that captaincy now. We'll speak about him in a little bit of time, but we know that he can do great things. Just even look at him over the last bunch of years in his scoring when he plays good minutes. So building up to it over the last few weeks, 36 into a 42 into a 54. All of those 3 games above that 35. And you saw last week the tackle numbers were back up to where we like to see him at, and what he's done for most of his career, sort of the mid to high 40s. And then 2023 last year, he had game 1, he got 51, game 4, 59, he had 52. 2 low ones there in round 18-19 in his first return games in the hooking position. So he didn't look as good with 37-28. And then he finished out round 22 there after that's coming back from injury from him. Again, he's had a few of them when he got injured in 2021, but he finished that year at 37-28, but then built up to 55, 60, 50, 71, and 51. So that's something that's in his wheelhouse. Obviously, the odd try assist could be nice as well, but mid-40s tackles, 30 to 50 meters. You're sitting there in anywhere close to a 50 mark. If you can get a tackle break or an offload in there, one of either would be great. At worst, I see if he stays on the park, I see him as a 45 guy, and that's 10 points of value for a guy that can cover your hooking position. And I'm not super excited about Joey Lussick. There's a decent chance, to be fair, at this point that I do hold on to Harry Grant over that period. We'll see what happens if he's a bench guy in round 14. If I held that long, then maybe we could trade Grant because he'll be benched for 17 and 20 as well. But trades is also going to be a thing. And if Brailey can play out the entirety of the year, there's a very high chance that he's one of the better hooking players for the year. Just the consistency that he provides with the tackle numbers is exactly what you want to look for. And he's had 4 tackles, 2 missed tackles, 2 missed tackles. If he can improve that number to average about the 2 for the year, which across his career, he's been a 2.3 kind of guy. If he can get it to somewhere there, I think that he'll consistently be in the 40s. And at worst, it's like an easy second hooker option for the entirety of the year. So Brailey, another really good purchase, in my opinion. Again, just try not to load up on too many hookers. He's someone that Danny Levi could go to Brailey for me, and that would be a massive upgrade. So obviously have a look at your Knights coverage as well, given that Armstrong and Brailey are fairly high options on people's list this week. All right, I'm really high on Dane Gagai at the moment, but you do have to look at a few things. So round 16 is when he has an important buy through that period, and that is also the same time that Kale Aro has a buy. So that would be a couple of your centers that are in that position. If you have dual guys, obviously the Kirazes, the Garricks, these types of players as well, that are going to cover wing fullback in other weeks, and then maybe they could cover center in that one, then Gagai is a really good play this week, in my opinion. He's got the Warriors into the Tigers, Titans, the bye obviously, but then round 13 against the Dogs. A couple of tough ones in there in Melbourne and Penrith when they will be full strength, or Melbourne will be having guys back up. Penrith will be a tough one. But we know that he can get good tackle numbers and do some good work in attack against any team. So Gags we're not too worried about in that standpoint. But the big thing with him is obviously the goal kicking. So you're adding extra points to him. He has a 45.5 average. He's carried a couple of niggles this year, a couple of injuries, which isn't super ideal. He came back after missing a week in round 4 and got 37-26. Missed round 7 as well into a 66. So hopefully that's probably a little bit of a worry. Obviously, missed tackles have been way higher than that he has at other points. Like some stretches he goes 4, 5, 6 for sure. But then other stretches he'll have 0, 2, 1 and that kind of range, which he had on the weekend, which is good with a try. So if he can get any type of attacking stats, we know what he can do with offloads. He didn't get as many. He's had one this year, and last year he had a heap. So if he gets that back into his game at all and still has a few missed tackles, that'll offset that. And he's a guy that you can hold for the entirety of the season. And it definitely is a point of difference in the center slot rather than, if you have to play Strange, then you're subject to sort of anywhere between a 15 to a 40. Whereas Gagai, most likely it's going to be, 30 upwards to a 60 odd to a 70, which we've seen in across his career, but in the last few years especially, he's been an absolute superstar. So he's a definite point of difference type of player, which could do really well. There is a risk in it, obviously spending a fair bit of cash in the centers when you've got Garrick and these types of guys, but they aren't available in round 13 either. So something to think about for sure. I definitely think he's going to do well, and that he averaged 54 without goal kicking last year. He's got the goal kicking now. I think he should be able to do really, really well for owners of him. Let's go straight to Garrick now, and the good news for him, Olakou'atu is out. We knew that, and DC fought his charge, and it has been overturned. So he's all good to play this week, just with a fine. And that means it helps Garrick, I think. If that right side was a little bit decimated and you had Arthur in there as well without Olakou'atu, I do think it's a side that could do a little bit poorer over the next few weeks. And especially when you've got a couple of nicer matchups, you really want him, really want to give him the ability to score really well. And I definitely think that grabbing him this week now is still a really good play. This is probably the lowest you'll get him at, guys, at 547. We saw last year that he had different periods of time where he got really cheap. Last year he got to a 491 after a 27-minute game for 10 points. He had 31-27. That really cooked him into down to 491, and then he went pretty good. He went a couple of 50 odds, a 39, 104 in that next one, and we know that he can be a little bit up and down, but he scored really well from sort of round 17 onwards to the back end of the year at fullback. And then, Kohler ended up playing the last couple of games there. So I wonder if, when Tommy's out across the bye period as well, in maybe potentially around 14 again, to get some Panthers, but does Kohler play fullback in round 16 and 19, or, does Garrick play it? So I do think that it's probably a this week or next week play for Garrick. Given he's got a break even closer to the 30 mark, he's priced at 39. I do think he'll be a 40 scorer this year that covers two positions, plays two major buys in round 14 as well. Yes, against Penrith, but backing up. I do think that he's a good purchase. He's no must-have this week by any stretch with the break-even that it's at. And coming off a 23 against the Titans a week before. Yes, 83 against the Eels, but they're pretty gross at the moment. So are Canberra. So he could definitely do great this week as well. And I'm expecting sort of anywhere between 40 and 70 this week. So good score for sure. Priced at 39. If he gets the 40, he'd be a little bit frustrated. But there are obviously other options in different positions that you could target, and we'll get into them at some point. So he's like an 8 out of 10 buy for me this week, Ruben Garrick. Jacob Kiraz. He obviously plays round 13, so that's a little bit more of an appeal compared to that of Garrick, but he is 50k more expensive in a team that's doing well also. They've got the Panthers after this week, so Tigers into Panthers. Plays round 13, 16, misses 15 and 19. So it's a good stretch, obviously, up until round 19, to be honest there, and you could decide what you want to do with guys like Kiraz at this point. But the last few weeks have been really, really good for him, and I've just been really impressed with the base stats that he's putting up. And obviously that week against the Storm is a really tough matchup, and he was able to get 303 meters and just work his butt off. And then up against the Knights, they were able to kind of dominate them a bit. So he didn't have to do as many carries out of his own half, but he still made 190 meters. They went right a little bit more as well, which was great. Having Crichton next to him at center there, I think is very helpful for him, because ball's going to go down that way. And I think Crichton helps Kiraz defensively as well. You saw there on the weekend, he had 0 missed tackles in the end, made 3, so obviously not much traffic down his side, but that's good news. The offloads are there. Only 1 tackle break to still get 48 is massive for him. And I do think that he's a good purchase going forward. You can, if you don't buy him this week, I think you get him in the Canberra matchup in round 11 rather than next week against Penrith. So you can wait around and watch him for a little bit. We've got other guys like Curran and stuff you can talk about as well. But let's go to Kaipius Paul next. I think he's a clear hold, guys, at 673. He has had a really good season up until last week, and it was just a bit of an off game from him. Tackle numbers were the lowest since round 2 at 27 there, with 3 misses is a tied high for him. 1 tackle break only, which is his lowest since round 2 as well, and no offloads, which he hasn't done since round 2. So with him there, he had a couple errors and a penalty. It'll get better from there. Don't stress too much about Kai. He hasn't, break even hasn't gone up too high. I think he'll be a 50 odd guy this week, this year, and you're looking at any games over 50 minutes there, and he's a 50.4 average even with that 30. So I think Kai will be fine. Don't stress about him. Maxi Plath, the great man, Maxi boy. Just play. He should. What people are saying about Mciness, he just plays every week with the wrap around his head, so we know where to find him if you can't see the number. That's for sure. But Mciness should be doing the same, I reckon, just ready for his cuts. Plathy, big news with him. Obviously, I don't think it's super related, but it definitely helps. And let's just say it's not a worry anymore. But Flegler being out for another month, I definitely think gives added benefit to Plath. And he's been trusted with big minutes, and he would have played 50 odd minutes in round 4, apart from the sim bin. So he had 53 in round 2 when he started. He would have been 50 odd in that week as well. And then since he's come back, they've just decided to trust him in that 13 role for big minutes, and he's showing that he can do it easily. Obviously, a 2-try effort the week before, 71 minutes, 66 minutes in the next clash. Again, with like Bromwich brothers going off, all these things, I don't think it affects it too much. Maybe he's a 60-minute guy. Maybe he's got an extra 5 to 10 minutes over the last few weeks, but I don't see the 13 role being affected by the front row forwards. It's a very different rotation. They're really liking how he's going about his business out there. He finally missed some tackles on the weekend, 3, but he's super solid through there. He keeps it strong. He doesn't tire as much as other players do in bigger minutes like that, and he's not making stuff ups in there as well. He has 1 error and no penalties for this year, so he's massive. And I definitely think he's someone that you should be looking at this week at 6'11". I want to keep him as low owned as possible personally, but he's a terrific buy this week for sure at 611k. With the half, with the mid dual, it's massive, and priced at 44. I do expect about a 50 average still, so. And that's conservatively for him. Like, he's gone above that the last 2 weeks with good scores. I think if he can get 60 minutes, it's a 50 average, and anything on top of that is gravy. Gone up from 0.3% a couple of weeks ago when I had him to up to 7 last week overall. And 19 of the top 100 have him, 12% of the top 5,000. So a good buy, Maxi Plath this week. Hopefully he fits your team and doesn't hurt you in round 14 with that coverage, but otherwise, I think that over the next bunch of weeks, you should be able to score super well and keep the good times rolling. As you can tell, there are a lot of potential buys this week, and that's what makes this tough. And we still haven't even got to Bateman and these types of players. But Trey Fuller, really, really cracking week. Obviously, buying him last week was massive. 4% owned, 11% in the top 5,000. Another one with Plath. They seems to be the top 100 of owning Plath and Fuller, and that's working out great. But a 57 for him in game 1 into a 68. With no tries last week or try assists, so had a lovely line break assist, 3 line breaks in there, good run meters, the odd offload, which is lovely as well, and getting into making tackles. He's made 16 tackles for, yes, he missed 4 in game 1, but only 1 last week, which is lovely. 513k is a little bit of an awkward price, but if he continues to score well, he could get up into the 700k mark very quick. Looks like Hammer might be likely available round 12, to be honest with you, and I hope he does, because you want one game out of him to make sure that he gets picked for Origin. I think he will anyway. Like Nanai, I don't even think he was playing for Cowboys at the time. He was back fit, and they went, "Yep, we trust you. Come and straight back in." And I think that'll be the same with Hammer at center, especially. He'll be fine. But hopefully, I think he gets 1 game in round 12, so Fuller would miss that week. And then Fuller plays round 13 would be my goal. So if you think that's going to be the case, you might have been worried about it last week and he come out and scored well, and he's gone up 60k though again. So can you bite the bullet and grab him this week? Again, around 14 buy, BYE instead of BUY in that one. But another option that could really work out, but could be annoying as well. And there's just so many purchases this week. Can you get to all of them is the big question. But incredible he was last week. Cleary at 906. So again, I think for head-to-head players, Cleary is the guy. You've got Hynes there, but he's well expensive now at 996. So a 90k difference for someone that I think is going to score the same, or it was slightly better. I think most people had him for the year. With Atkinson there, it might be about the same. Let's just say it's the same, but 90k difference. If Hynes makes Origin, Cleary's going to play more games over that time. So keep that in mind. And he plays the Bunnies this week into the Dogs, Waz, and Sharkies before Origin. So there's 4 weeks still there for him to come out and play really well. The higher break even is 79. It's not an issue for Cleary this week. I think he goes massive. And I do think that if you own Cleary and Hynes, I feel like Cleary is the captaincy option this week. It's tough to do that, obviously, but I do think that that's the way to go. He's had enough time to warm up this year, for sure. 350s. And a 75 there, going off a little bit early. Winning the bag with hamstring issue apparently. So good one to get through that week, and I think he'll start to explode in this one coming up. So not too much else to say on the great Cleary. Nico Hynes, 30. What's the difference there? Ownership 34.7, 30% ownership for Cleary. So both highly bought, obviously, and Nico just in absolute sublime form over the last few weeks. The tackle numbers are absolutely huge. In the last 2 weeks, he's gone 2 misses and 1 misses, which is exactly what you want as well, just to keep those negatives down a bit. This week, went to obviously 124 and 89 the last two, and has a lower break even. So he's going to get well into the million mark. Obviously, touch wood on any reason why he would go under 30. But I do expect it to go well again this week. And again, a fair bit of rain predicted. We'll know a little bit more obviously over the next few days. So don't have it as gospel. But we'll get into a little bit more of as much as we can. Get to some decent weather predictions tomorrow. I think when we make the trades video and stuff will be cool. But Nico, clear guy that you can grab this week. Overall teams, you can take the risk and go Hynes, hoping that he doesn't play Origin and he's straight in there for round 13 and 14. All right, Johnny Bateman, 642 ownership 3%. So good work to those that traded him in last week. Big thing with Johnny is that he looks back to some of his best fitness. It looks like, getting the head knock. It's hopefully, it seems like it knocked him around into a space where he is back to a fantasy gun, because he went 36, 42, and 47. He was building up into the year, obviously. He had one tackle break in that time. Plenty of offloads, lower run meters than we've seen him in previous years, but we do need to look at sort of any time he gets over the 70 minutes. It's really nice. Like it's good viewing there, to be fair. Whether it's second row, I think this lock into second row position is just absolutely tailor-made for him. He did it a bunch of times here. Bateman shifts to the middle when Kapoa comes onto the field at right edge. So that's where you can look at the information there. He picked up a try in that one as well. And then he just played middle for this one. He plays 80 minutes in the middle, got 65. And if he continues this split role, he's going to get big tackle numbers, and then he's going to run the footy and get tackle breaks and offloads. Whether tries and stuff will come, he's not really that guy anyway. So I do think middle is good for just crabbing, getting tackle breaks, getting offloads and the like there. And we've seen it over his career. Let's just say, even if you just look at last year, right? He's currently priced at 46. The big issue with him is that he's edge only right now. If he continues to play this lock role, which let's just say it's a 50% chance he continues to play lock, and he gets named there for round 14, they'll make the change and he'll be a mid-edge dual, which is going to be super cool. My thing right now is I don't need an edge personally, but priced at 46, look at the type of scoring that you can get from him if you're looking at this from just last year only, when he plays over 70 minutes, it's a 57.5 average. And that included some games at the start of the year where he was a little bit slow. He went 40, sort of 48 or 51. It was all okay. Then he exploded through that middle part of the season. Had a couple of lower ones in there with no real big tackle numbers on the edge there. The Tigers were in a bit of a shambles, to be fair. At times, they weren't looking great, but a couple of low ones, but then 55, 50, and 60. So if you can get anywhere above the 50, which is highly expected, if you can get anywhere near this 57.5 average, which you definitely can, there was even times on the weekend where I was like, oh, they just held on to him before he got an offload away, or he was just about to get away. They got him around the legs. That kind of stuff, that if he gets away from that, it's another 4 points, 2 points, whatever it is with offloads and tackle breaks. So Bateman is someone that I'm just like, well, we've got 4 weeks until Origin, week 1, which you'll miss. But if he gets that mid, even if he doesn't get the mid, right? If he moves back between second row and middle, he is a guy that's probably got 100K to make. I think we can get him to 740 easily. Like last year, he got to 768, which was awesome. And then kind of hung anywhere between there and finishes 698. But even if he does that, he goes up a little bit up and down and finishes around 700K. That's still 50K. It's still 5 points to 10 points of value for a guy that's, plays all the way up until round 26 after that round 13 bye. It seems like a hard one to pass on. If he can get this role and he can be anywhere closer to that 60 on a weekly basis playing 80 minutes, there's a risk that he moves back or he doesn't play the full 80. There's those types of risks here. But I do think they need him to play that type of role in the middle and help them get wins, because at the moment it's not happening for him. Hopefully it turns around this week for him against the Bulldogs, into the Knights, Dolphins and Cows. They need a couple of wins out of that 4, I think. And if they can get a couple of wins with him at 13, I do think, and they're happy with Samuel Fainu on that left-hand side, I do think that Bateman will stay there and he'll be one that you guys and myself, if I don't grab him, wish that we just jumped on, even if the position didn't work perfectly for our edge by planning. He works perfectly for that entire period of 14 to 19. And look, we're most likely to lose one of our edges to injury or suspension maybe one of them loses some form. Pete Curran I've got, and who knows if I'm going to still have him at round 13. That's 5 weeks ago away, round 13. There's a lot to be done in that time, and then a terrific run after that. He feels hard to pass up for me, in my opinion. And let's see if this video changes my mind at all, or gives me some more clarity, which sometimes it usually does. And I hope it does for you guys too, obviously. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Long video this one's going to be. Samuela Fainu at 430k. So, guys, I was really impressed with how he went about his business last week. Obviously, the penalty and sin bin was a tough one. So you take that out and he's a 35 in the 70 minutes. The question is, was he going to get 80 minutes, right? If you don't want to buy him this week, you can wait and find out if that was going to be the case. And if it is the case and he gets 80 minutes, there's every part of me that thinks he's going to get tackle breaks and he's going to get offloads. He ran the ball really well. There was a few times where he looked like he probably was going to get through and they held on last second, that type of thing. And if they can get that meters gain for him up to about the 110 mark, like he had in 2 of the games this year, I do think that he's going to be a damaging 40-odd point edge for him that covers a lot of positions here in mid and edge, and it is a good price. You could get him this week. I do think it's a bit of a risk, and you don't need to, with the break even being fairly high there in the 30s. You're not going to get cooked by him, so he's an easy one to watch this week. He's also one that you could easily buy. There's 12 people in the top 100 that own him, so good stuff to those guys. And yeah, that's probably it on him. Hold off on getting him, or you can get him this week and take the plunge. Adam Fanua-Blake, will put him into the same mold as Tohu Harris. People are thinking about is Tohu a sell now that he got 62 minutes? He'll be fine, guys. Some games he'll get lower minutes. Adam Fanua-Blake is in a purple patch right now of playing 60 plus minutes. And we know that, last year, for the most part, he was in that realm, high 50s to 60 odd minutes. And that's where he was at on the weekend with a couple of tries. And he had his highest missed tackles in a good while there. He had a 1-4 game last year, and that was it. So even, that score could be even better with a couple less missed tackles. And he's so important to this side right now. They're in a bit of strife. But 780k, it's a little bit expensive now at 56 average. But again, him and Tohu Harris at about the same price, and I think they'll score where they're priced at now across the season. So no real value on them, but definitely guys you can rely on in your teams. So that's that. Let's speak about some of the potential sells now, and that's Terrell May at 620k. He's a frustrating one, and he's one I'm tinkering with. Do I look to move him to Bateman? Do I get another? Do I get Garrick? What do I do with this situation? Terrell, you can hold. I understand why you might look to do it. Look, he won't. If he plays 26 minutes again, he won't score a 16. Mark my words. He'll fix that PPM up. It was a bit of a tough game for him, and I think the doggies will play. Not doggies. Broncos will play a little bit more. I was looking around 16 already. Broncos will play a little bit a fair bit through the middle before they fang it out to the edges. So he will get his tackles. He will need to be on there to cover the big boys in Carrigan and Haas, that's for sure. So I expect a few more minutes this week than 26, but we do need to look at what's going to happen as well. We'll discuss Connor Watson in a second, but with Terrell, I think he's easy to sell. Obviously, if you're struggling for round 14 anyway, then that's going to help you remove someone from that situation. But we do need to look at our round 13 mids, and I very much hope that Sam Hughes can just be a mainstay in our sides, and no matter what and who comes back, he can still get 30 odd minutes, because I'll just hold Hughes through that time. We'll have to see what's happening with Salmon as well. So if we can hold both of them to round 13, that would be sick, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. So Terrell, you can hold or sell. Up to you. Obviously, like I said last week, he's got 5 out of the 7 games he'd scored 50 plus with a 71 and 2 60 plus games in there. So he has the upside, but if the minutes aren't going to be there, then he's a sell. But if you're like, could I hold this week? And you might, you want to hold this week, then that's fine as well. Speaking of Taylor, he's still at a price where I think you can sell him, but he's going to get to a price soon. If he gets in a 4 in front of his name, that people are going to want to buy him. And then you got the Rabbitohs this week, into the Dogs, into the Wars, as I said there, and then plays round 13 as well. So dual position wing fullback center that is 522 now. When I still owned him, it was obviously, a little bit further back at 560 odd, but priced at 39, priced at 37. He hasn't scored a try this year. He's got 1 try assist and 2 line breaks, and that was only in 1 game that he got the line breaks. And his highest tackle break numbers are 3. getting the odd offload each game. His floor is now officially 27 after going 28 and 29 and 34 the last 4 games, with the 34 before that. It's super frustrating. Surely against the Bunnies' right-hand side defense that they give him a bit of ball and don't just cut out him to Tohu. I think he's probably a hold at this point. It's a tough one, but this little run and him playing round 13, it's hard to sell someone in that situation, even if he isn't scoring well. We've got Strange there at 430 odd that picked up a 14 last week, and I'd hold him at 430 odd. I think May now at 522 is a hold. Connor Watson. So it was actually correct. Robbo did say after the Anzac game that Connor Watson was likely going to be playing 13 anyway, and Butcher was going to be dropped to the bench with Radley playing on the edge. So that's really big news, because Watson, if he does play 13 and covers 9 as well, it could be close to an 80-minute effort from him in the 13 role. And obviously that would mean Radley, I'd say, would switch then from edge after like 50-odd minutes, or however they do, Brandon Smith's changeover. He would come back into the middle, Radley, and then Butcher would come onto the edge there. Or if they decide to go Brandon Smith off at like the 30-minute mark, Watson would shift from 13 to 9, and then Butcher would come onto the edge, Radley would come on there, and then they'd work that out that way. So if Watson can get anything over 50 minutes, he's a terrific player, and we know that for him in sort of any position that he plays. Look at all these great scores, 50s, 40s, high 30s, and priced at 42. It's a bit expensive, obviously, but we know that in that situation of 50 minutes and above, that's a 47 average, and that includes games at like 5/8 and the like. But if you go back to a lock position there, it's a 60 and 68.8 minutes. So he's absolutely incredible in that scenario. And the thing is, I'm trading Terrell May, likely, right? With them playing obviously in the same game up against the Broncos, if it's actually named that way and Radley does go to the edge, I think Connor Watson's a good buy at 589, and he's going to be a mid that plays around 13 that could hit you any type of score. We saw a 75 on the weekend just through pure base and some offloads and some tackle breaks there. If he can stay on the park, he's an absolute superstar. And again, now we've probably got 7 or 8 guys that are a good purchase this week that you could consider for sure. So Watson, definitely someone I'm interested in. Obviously this year he's had a pretty good start, that's for sure. 34 and 37 in limited minutes off the bench, 52 and 62 minutes there. One with the try, one with the try saver. The last few weeks he's really dominated, 50 and 45 at 5'8". So we show here that he has terrific base and obviously a couple of more missed tackles on an edge, and then 75 in the lock. So Watson's a superstar type of player. Speaking of another purchase this week, Sam Walker at 557. After that incredible effort, you see here in games where he can get some good kick meters, he seems to score really well. So you look here at obviously that 90 on the weekend was incredible with 370 kick meters there. We've had games there at 41 in round 1 with 408 kick meters. He went lower in round 2 with low kick meters, but a 50 and a 37. Yeah, 37 was against Panthers, by the way, as well. You look here to the start of 2023 with really nice kick meters. Apart from round 6, it was 269, which again will go up, it looks like, with Cleary saying that he wants Walker to take control of this side. 48, 69, 41, 65. He did then have a 30, but that looks like a bit of a shocker with an error. 3 penalties in that one against the Sharkies. But again, he's going to be a little bit of an up and down type of scorer, given he misses a bunch of tackles, but he does have the upside of really high games. You see there are a really long stretch of games at 5'8" where he wasn't the main kicker. So what we should do is just extrapolate that out for a halfback position. And in that scenario, minutes over the 70, just to get that locked in. He kicks for 265 meters at halfback at 46 average, right? That's across 2021, which was his rookie year. Yeah, rookie year. Let's make it a little bit nicer for you and go 2022, which was a 50 in that time when he averaged 347 kick meters. Cool. 2023 was a 49 as well. So with Walker priced at 40, expect about 9 points of value, I'd say, from him. Yes, he has a 90 in his game, and that's great to see as a guy that has a nice ceiling. Expect a 49. Shouldn't be an Origin if DCE's fit, especially, and plays around 13, misses 14 as well. So again, have a look at that. But he's a half that you could really go for that has some value, that's for sure. But again, it's another rooster that you're looking to target, which is, a tough one to look at for sure. Tedesco's another one. I wouldn't look to buy him this week. He's just a hold if you own him. Brandon Smith, on the other hand, he's someone that is a worrisome asset. And I do think that probably Terrell is a sell before Brandon, just because the price is a little bit higher. Brandon covers 2 positions, and we know that if he can get back to anywhere near what he scored from round 1 to round 6, then he's going to be a good asset for your side. And again, I think it probably, depends a little bit based on how the makeup of their squad ends up. And if that's, Bradley and Watson news and stuff, how that actually plays out for sure. But Brandon, hold or sell it's completely fine. It's a high break even again. If you're done with him against, you think Broncos, he's not going to go that great, then he's an easy one to sell. I understand that. Or hold is fine too. But he'll probably lose some money over it for a while. Jamin Jolliffe, Jolly JJ, the GOAT. 48 he's priced at now, so it's getting higher, that's for sure. And I expected him to be about a 50 average, a little bit above that if he gets to 60 odd minutes, which he's got. Like I said last week, nothing changes on my prediction, except for the fact that last week was the easiest watch of my life. 64 in 60 minutes, no negatives. Do expect the odd missed tackle from him, surely. Last 2 weeks he's had none, and he had none in the first couple of games as well. So do expect a couple of those, the odd random error or something like that. Doesn't look like he's going to offload, but we don't need it from JJ. Lower break even. I think this is the week. If you're going to get him, this is the week to get him. He'll be over, if he goes well again and gets like a 60, he'll be over 700k. And then it's a bit tougher to buy him, but still, if he's getting 60s, he could be a buy at any point. I do think that Plath is a buy before Jolliffe, just because of the price point and the coverage. But then Jolliffe is a great pick. If you already have Plath, I think Jolliffe in the mids is the next guy to grab. Obviously doesn't play round 13 though. Is an easy swap from Terrell May to Jamin Jolliffe. Joey Lussick. I think it's going to end up being a situation where I hold him this week to be my looper, but could be a guy I sell next week or the week after, right? So they have the bye this week. Then it's into Broncos, Melbourne. Yes, he plays round 13, but if you've got a Brailey, if you're looking at JMK, something like that, then that's probably where you want to end up in that situation. With Lussick is that you could just sell. Holding's fine. He's got a 40-odd break even. Not the end of the world, but don't look to play him weekly. He's got too many 20s now in his game, frustratingly enough. That's 28-24. But after he's 28 and 27, this time maybe he comes out and gets 45 and 52 again. But he does have hands on the bench. If that's the way it plays out, obviously, I think holding for me this week and then seeing what the bench looks like before I make the sell. If hands on the bench, sell next week. You can sell this week as well, but I've got Gutho to deal with. Either way is fine with Lussick. Atkinson at 245. He's a very interesting asset now that he's down. Break even's down a little bit. He only made a tiny bit of cash last week. A 31 for him. Running the footy is probably the best thing about that. He looked to run the footy more than kick, which is great. I think in that scenario, good for Hynes and good for him. He still kicked for 126 meters, but 120 meters, 2 tackle breaks. Is good on that front. Defensively wasn't too bad at 14 for 2 misses. But again, it was against a team that didn't have a lot of firepower. Covers wing fullback in half. It doesn't look like Trindle's going to be back anytime soon. He's a good one to go for. Jolly Jamin Hopgood. So there's a few people trading him out. I think he's 1.5% have sold him. And I understand it in the buy way. I understand if you think he's going to play Origin, which if he does play Origin, he's going to miss a bunch of games there. 13, 16, 19, 20. Maybe he gets reduced minutes as well. But I do think he's a hold this week. He's someone that's averaging 58, which is just wild. Yes, had a 43 a couple of weeks ago, but he played 73 minutes on the weekend for 59 points. And it would be a mistake, in my opinion, to sell him. Yes, he has 340s, but that his lowest score of 43, his highest score of 78. That's too big of a ceiling to miss out on, and he's going to have to play massive minutes against Broncos and Melbourne for them to be any chance, in my opinion. So hold Hopgood if you can. Someone you could sell instead of Hopgood to get to Hynes or Cleary. That's probably the big thing, is if you're trying to get to the big dogs. I understand that Hopgood could be an easy way to get to Cleary or Hynes, but I think it would be a mistake. Appy, 594. So he's priced at 42 now. He's got the break even in the mid 60s. It's a worrying situation, obviously playing the 56 minutes on the weekend with the back issue. Highest missed tackles of the year with 8. He was in a really good position until that back slam. He obviously missed some tackles in and around that in the start of the second half, and then had the error on the back slam. So, yeah, he was in the, I said 21 off 23 minutes. So, he's an easy one to hold this week if you want to. I'd have him as a hold a little bit more over Brandon Smith, if that helps anyone. And I do understand you might want to sell, though, because his highest score is 44 since round 3. So, it's pretty gross on that front. But, yeah, you could give him one more week, see what happens. He's already at 594, so it's fairly cheap at that, and go from there. Olakou'atu, fairly easy one, guys. He's going to miss these next 2 games, and then he's going to play a couple, then have a bye, right? He could make Origin as well, and if he does that, he'll miss 16, and then if he's still there, he'll miss 19 as well. So he'll only play sort of 5 of the next 10, which is frustrating. Obviously, having him as an out this week. He comes back against Broncos in Melbourne. Probably harder for him to score tries as well. He's been a great servant. He's done a great job. But I do think now that, it's frustrating because he's been doing great and he's been a good point of difference type of player, but he might be a sell now. Danny Levi, sell or hold is fine. He's out. He's going to play this week. He's not going to lose too much with a break even of 37. So he's one of those guys that is fine to hold, fine to sell. That's probably all I need to say. He's not going to score great. Longer term, he could cover you for round 13, but there's other guys to do that. Blaze Talagi, he's on the sell list as well. 4 people, about 1.8% or something like that. But there's every chance that he plays fullback next week for Gutho. So I'm a little bit annoyed that I don't have him in that scenario. I was like, well, if I had Gutho, you'd hope to have Talagi as the backup, which is not the case, for me in that sense. But for you guys, if you do own him, hold him. For that reason, if he plays fullback, he'll make some money. Dave Fifita, 822k. So, if you're doing a straight swap someone to him, if it's Terrell and you got some cash in the bank from going down to a cheapie like Armstrong or something and you want to go to Fifita, this is a cool week to do it because if you can get sort of 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s out of him over the next bunch of weeks, that right side defense for Melbourne has been terrible as well. So, there's every chance he could score some good points down at left-hand side this week. And then you've got, Cowboys, who are the Cowboys. You got Knights and Broncos before Origin, obviously. So he's one of those guys. If you've saved a bunch of trades, I do think the Fifita is a nice punt this week. Obviously, if you can go up to Cleary, that'd be good as well. So either way, Jerome Hughes is 784. He's still the best half gun that doesn't play Origin, I think, at this stage to pick, but doesn't play round 13. So if you've got 13 covered, then he's an easy one to grab. If you don't have 13 covered, maybe you don't hold off at him because I think this is close to his peak for the year, priced at 56. Obviously, if he continues that average of 58.7, he's got a little bit of money to make, gets to 800. But outside of that, he's pretty close to the peak, just like AFB and Tohu Harris. All right, so Chester or Drinkwater were the guys we want to target from this week onwards. And now with Chester going down, Drinkwater becomes the premier wing fullback option with Dylan Edwards, who I'm not sure if I chucked. I did chuck him in next. Good boy, JB. So 719 for Drinkwater. Unlikely to play Origin. Has a nice run here. Dolphins, Titans, Bunnies, Tigers into Roosters with their Origin guys out. And then Waz, Canberra. So either this week or next week, I think is a good time to grab Scotty. They come up against the Dolphins, who are obviously a little bit cooked. They've got a few guys coming back in Felice and the like. A fairly high break even, so you could wait a week, but he might be able to get under 700k, but he could also go 80 this week, like he did against the Titans in round 5, or a high 50s or a 60, and score really well. So I think either buy him this week or next week is where you're at if you want a 13, 14 wing fullback. Dylan Edwards, same scenario. He could obviously be in Origin. I think he's ahead of Drinky at this point. Is he ahead of Tommy Turbo or Teddy? Unlikely, I think. Less than 50% chance that that's the case, and he continues to score big points. Yes, didn't goal kick on the weekend, but 58 for him is massive. Exactly what you would have wanted in that scenario, and a very easy try on that front. Just over 200 meters every game, except for round 1. What a softie, 195. But yeah, cracking effort from him. Break even under 50, which is good. Coming up against the Bunnies this week, a terrific matchup. He should be able to score well, but who knows? Last year was one of those games they'd smash teams and he would be the one that miss out. But at the moment, it's Taylor May is the one that's missing out. So Edwards, if you want to go for it, awesome pick as always. Mciness, 722k. I still don't understand the sell. The people were looking to sell him last week. Yes, he got 50 minutes with a try. It would have been closer to a 50, obviously, if he didn't get that try, like a high 40s kind of type of game. But when they're beating teams 40-0, he's not going to get involved as much in the just the base stat side, but in here he's running the footy well at the moment. That's what I'm really seeing out of him. He's running with vigor. He's getting good meters gained. So if he can get over 100 meters gained on a weekly basis, he will score well, and you're seeing that at the moment. I still think he's a hold. I understand this. I understand a little bit why people are selling him, but he's not nowhere near on my sell list when he plays around 13 and 14. Just when he coming off a 60. Yes, he got a 35 the week before, but he went 51, 70, 58, and 61 with a 35 in there. I just think it would be silly to sell at the moment. But yeah, people are saying they're like, oh, no, you're going to say Mciness is a hold. But yeah, I was looking to buy him a couple of weeks ago. There you go. That's that on Mciness. You can decide on that yourself. Last few. I got a bunch left, don't I? Oh, wow. Still got 5 to go. This might be, we might crunch over an hour here. Reece Walsh. I hope that you guys, are really appreciating this. It's, I enjoy doing it. It helps with my trades too. Reece Walsh is 637. I think last week was the week to get him. It seems harder to get him now. Obviously, price is up a bit. Plays Origin soon. He's highly owned, which is, obviously helpful if you do decide to grab on. The Roosters this week's a little bit tougher, but he comes up against Para, Manly, Titans. So it's a pretty nice 4-week stretch still. I do think that they'll bring it to the Roosters, and it's going to be a fun matchup, and Walsh is going to do as much as he can to help them win. So that's that with Walsh here. I think it's hard to grab him this week, in my opinion. But if you do, it's a nice 4-week play at minimum. Josh Curran. So we go back to our mid and edge purchases, and Curran is definitely one you need to look at. Minutes-wise is going to be a little bit tough, I think, this week. If Preston comes back as well, we've got Kurt Mann returning this week. Curran starting in the front row rotation. So we do need some attacking stats from him to get that going. Offloads aren't there as much. Tackle rates aren't there too much. So hopefully, I do think he's due for one of these type of games where he gets some tackle breaks, offloads, potentially a line break or try. He's close somewhere. He's been close some weeks. So 616, he feels cheap enough that he's still a good buy, to be honest with you there. I think he's a high 40s guy, and then some games he'll go 50, 60, which you've seen in the past there in lock games that he can get line breaks. He's got offloads. He's got tackle breaks in his game, but it just hasn't happened at the doggies there. Like, he got to try in that lock game in 2022. He gets the odd one in the second row, obviously, for obvious reasons. But yeah, I do think that he's due for something and would be a good purchase, but it depends how many dogs you have as well. So keep that in mind. But dual position, 616K. Obviously, with the guys coming back, there's all that in there. Talking about another mid, Sele, he's the cheapest guy, I think, in the mids that you can target this week. If you're not obviously holding Hughes, Salmon, you don't need another mid right now if you're going to hold them. See what happens with them and go from there. But if you want one, a mid, that is, it's Sele. Break even at close to the 20 mark, price at 29, which means that if he can continue these minutes, which last week was maybe a little bit affected, the week before wasn't, though. That was the big one. Eisenhuth played still for 50-odd minutes there. In round 6, Eisenhuth went to centres and Sele was building up with 43 into the last 2 weeks of 56. It feels safe for him to be about a 50-minute guy. And if that's the case, he's probably close to a 40, like a 39-40. We see his PPM career rise is 0.82. And so this year is a tiny bit under that at 40 and 44 in that 56 minutes. Just a tiny bit under that, about 0.78 or something like that. So if he can continue that, he'll be 10 points of value and gets you into the 500s and plays around 13, 14 and is really helpful. So there you go. Something simple on Sele. And then Jesse Ramien at 556. He is in a interesting position. He comes up against a couple of tougher matchups over the next 4 weeks with Melbourne, Roosters and Panthers. So that's probably the main thing that might steer you away from someone like Ramien, who came out with a bang now that Trindle isn't there. Hynes was able to dominate on the right-hand side a bit more, but they did win 40-0, and his best score outside of that was a 43. So he's a big risk for sure. And just another centre guy to have a look at, obviously after the bye. Bronson Xerri there. He has had one big game, obviously, out of the 3. 26, 59, 31. Price at 34. He's only had one score above that, so he could definitely plot around the 34. He's a risk that could be worth taking, playing around 13, 14. Does have Panthers the following week after this Tigers matchup. Does he continue to get better and better? I think he probably will. But do we think he's a 40 guy, or is he about a 35 guy? That's probably the question you need to ask yourself. And that is where we're going to leave it for this buy, hold, risk, sell for NRL Fantasy for round 9. It was a long one. Maybe it was about 50 minutes. We'll see once I jump out of this. But thank you so much for being here. And we'll catch you in the shorter version, the questions and team analysis. We got Supercoach and everything to come as well. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in that next one.